So I know that this is supposed to be a bit more of like a conversation and not like a lecture, so feel free to like unmute yourselves and like interrupt with questions and just like contribute. So hi everyone, my name is Roshan Khan, but all my friends call me Rosie. My pronouns are she, they, and I am a junior. I am a quadruple major, maybe a quintuple major in Plan 2 Honors Economics, Government, International Relations, and Global Studies, and Ancient Languages and Cultures with a specialization in Chinese. And that is a damn mouthful, but basically the way it happened is there's a lot of overlap between econ, government, and IRG and Plan 2, so I ended up just like doing all of them because I'm a IPE track in IRG, which stands for International Political Economy. So I study a lot of like the political side of things, and obviously I'm studying economics because I care about like human well-being and bringing a more like humanitarian aspect to the way people run the economy, I guess. Yeah, I'm 18 years old and I have been interning with Rainforest Partnerships since June this year. And the background of that is that I went on a Maymester to Costa Rica last summer with a group of like 20-ish other students. So we were there for a month and we got to travel throughout the whole country, and it was really amazing because it's not like a huge country. So we were able to visit all the different provinces and see all the different kinds of habitats there were and see different like national parks. We got to talk to small scale farmers. We got to visit a plantation. Yeah, so this summer, because of all of the pandemic's complications, I ended up working with Rainforest Partnership, and we launched a youth engagement initiative called Gen Z for the Trees. And the reason that is that Nyanta Spellman, who's the CEO, who's awesome, I'll tell you about her in a second, wants to bring more youth into the fold when it comes to rainforest conservation specifically, because a lot of us are engaged with like environmental questions, but a lot of folks also don't know a lot of the science that goes into it because they haven't had the same experiences of being immersed in a rainforest, or they haven't, like, they're not, you know, an environmental science major, so they don't have all the like educational access to things that they might need to understand the like in-depth questions of why certain things are happening regionally and then globally for the climate crisis. Yeah, do you all have any questions thus far? Okay, cool. So an introduction to Gen Z for the Trees. Basically, I can share my screen and show y'all RP's website, and also like show you guys what our like mission and our different pillars of work are. So, all right, let me share screen. This is RP's website. We are having a Climate Week event, and that is super exciting. And Rainforest Partnership was founded, I think, 17 years ago. Nyanta Spellman is the founder and CEO, and basically she is has always been engaged with doing rainforest work. So this is Nyanta, this is Fanny, there's Beth. Let me know if you can ever see part of my screen. But yeah, so Rainforest Partnership's main work on the ground is with communities in Peru and in Ecuador. So we have a communities page, which isn't accessible yet because it's still under construction, but you can see it anyway. Basically, our partner communities are throughout here. So we have the Achuar, the Colibri in Peru, San Isla, and I'm not sure how to pronounce these people's names. Chipalta, maybe. So basically our approach to rainforest conservation is there's like a six-pronged approach, and it integrates like conservation science, like conservation management, which involves getting like a sort of legal standing around the protections that we have. And the key thing that sort of drew me to them is sustainable livelihoods. So that means basically that we're helping find ways for the communities to financially support themselves in a sustainable way so that they don't feel the need to succumb to the pressure from companies that try to buy out their lands from them. So that would be companies for logging or oil drilling or farming. Yeah. So, and then Gen Z for the Trees is the newest branch, and we were founded this summer on World Rainforest Day, which is June 22nd every year. And World Rainforest Day is also something that RP launched back in, I think, 2017. Yeah, so Gen Z for the Trees, the reason we launched it, or I guess the backstory behind it is my first thing that I did as an intern was I was sent to watch this webinar about how Gen Z relates to brands and marketing and whatnot. And I learned that Gen Z is actually 40% of consumers, and by the year 2026 will be 40% of the workforce. So that kind of blew my mind a bit because I didn't realize our generation was already so large and powerful. And then I also went to a few other webinars to hear from different like indigenous leaders and how they're working in the global NGO, like UN 75 Summit. And what they were asking is, when you're working with communities, you have to make sure to ask them what they need, because they know what they need better than any outsiders do. And so we asked the question to ourselves, what does Gen Z need? And being a member of Gen Z, I feel like, and a lot of my friends, you know, having like eco anxiety and that kind of thing, I feel like what Gen Z needs is hope, because we live in such a dystopic, sliding into fascism kind of, I mean, in the United States at least, so situation. So we launched Gen Z for the Trees, and our goal, along with all of RP's goal, is to reach net zero deforestation by 2030. And that's an ambitious goal, but we're basically diving into all of the different causes of deforestation, because what we have to do is look at the science behind all of these different causes of deforestation. So, you know, there's oil drilling, there's agriculture, there's a major part of it, there's logging itself, there's like urban expansion and building roads. And so when it comes to tropical deforestation, I believe the largest share of that is for commodities production. So that's why we've launched a campaign into investigating palm oil, which I'll come back to in a second. The vision of Gen Z for the Trees is a 3-pillar approach, basically educate, inspire, and change. And this is also, you can see it here on our website. So this is what I said about like the size of our generation. And so the 3 different pillars, basically the educate part is so we can help more people understand the like science that goes into things and the sort of like socioeconomic and political forces that shape things, as well as to inform people about like the importance of indigenous people in conservation, because indigenous people are treated really like invisibly in popular like mainstream culture, I would say. And then the second part, inspire, which is sort of tackling the hopelessness issue, is to share the uplifting news and stories about environmental success stories and great technologies that have been invented that people haven't seen about. And then also to promote like solar punk art and stories. And solar punk as like a genre is not an official part of our brand, but you'll hear us talk about it a lot. So yeah, and then I can show you guys some of the examples of the inspirational content that we pull together. So maybe you'll learn something new that way. And then the change aspect is to basically create like a hub for resources so that in everyone's busy life, we can make it convenient for people to figure out one place to go to for like action items and share that with their friends. And we also wanted to ask, like, what's the most effective way to create change? We believe it's not just protesting, but really like going straight to the source of the problem. And so combining that with our like optimistic approach, what we're doing is going after corporations that have been the greatest offenders in deforestation, but we're not simply writing generic petitions to their CEOs to say, you know, divest from unsustainable palm oil, because to my knowledge, whenever companies are invested in something, it's not like a conscious decision of theirs. It's just that they diversify their portfolio, and so they're invested in it, they don't really realize. But if you do power mapping, if you go specifically to the people who you know are in decision-making positions and give them a list of recommendations, then they really can't ignore you, because there's like no recourse for why they wouldn't listen to you. And so that is our approach to having an impact. Yeah, so do y'all have any things to add or questions, remarks?
how do you go directly to the source? Like, how do you get in contact with these people that are in decision-making positions?
Sorry, how do we get in contact with the people in our,
Yeah, like directly.
the people for the corporations or the communities? Sorry, my volume's
Oh,
low.
sorry, my mic might. Yeah, it's been weird. But like, how do you get in contact directly with like people in positions where they can make decisions for corporations,
Yeah.
aside from like protesting or petitioning?
Hmm. Yeah, it's something that you have to kind of go like case by case. So there's a great example here, I believe. Basically, you have to look at the individual corporations because every single corporation has a different governance structure. You can find people's emails and you can also find their grievance processes. But because this is kind of like an internal review thing, this isn't maybe the best example. But there are some other things that you can look at that will show you the corporate governance structure. And then this is something that Jack and I had just talked about while y'all were filing in. Basically, there's this website here called Little Sis. It's the opposite of Big Brother, and it allows you to search for people's names, and then it'll show you. These are some examples that they just have like on a carousel, but it'll show you who they're connected with. It'll show you what positions they have. It'll show you who has donated to them. It'll show you who they have donated to. All of this kind of neat information. And so we are planning to basically do some power mapping related to this. The way that I found out about this is because I'm also part of a research collective called Women for Weapons Trade Transparency. So we're tackling like the international arms trade, and our current campaign, which is still in the works because we're in the process of researching this stuff and looking through big reports, is to get UTIMCO, which is the UT system, and A&M's investment corporation or company to divest from weapons manufacturing companies such as Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Boeing is there, and General Dynamics, and a few others. So this is a way that you can identify the people themselves, and then once you identify the people, you can probably find their email address or their, I don't think a phone number is a very good way to go, but yeah, like their email address. And if all else fails, you can write a letter to like the best contact info you can find for the corporation, but address it specifically to the person's name and their office. And it's more likely to get delivered to them that way, rather than just signing a petition to the corporation itself, the entire entity, because the entire entity doesn't have to pay attention to you. But when you target specific people, they, for lack of a better word, will be a little more intimidated that you actually know their name and you know their position in the government, in the like governance structure of the corporation, like if they're the vice chair of this branch of operations or whatever. So yeah.
It's also it's easier to divest personal responsibility when it's just a corporation. That's really good. Thank you. Is that doc you're using public or is that internal?
This doc that we have here is internal. This is just power mapping stuff for our team, and we haven't really had a chance to like read through all of this yet because some of our members had to like take a break from the summer because they started their senior year and they're working on theses. And we're also doing a Climate Week event, which I will tell you all more about in a bit. So this is just internal for now, but if you just look up littlesis.org, like this URL, you can find this website, and this is like a public website for anyone.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and other thing to keep in mind, if this interests y'all a lot, Rainforest Partnership is like open to taking applications for interns. They are unpaid internship positions, so if you're looking for a paid internship, it won't be one. But we are always open to recruiting new folks because our team currently is pretty small. So we could use a lot of help, a lot of eyes on all of this, obviously. And so, yeah, so that's the educate, inspire, and change part. And then to give you guys more of a visual of what this looks like, this Crosscheck 2.0 platform is a mapping system for public accountability offered by this plantation because they're trying to be leaders in sustainability. So if you go to basically their website link for that, you can see this that's through ArcGIS and basically identify all of their plantations and farms from which they source palm oil. So obviously they're heavily concentrated in Malaysia and in Indonesia. And you can click on anything and it'll tell you the parent company of it. It'll tell you if it's RSPO certified, which this one is not. That's a red flag. And what we are planning to do, we haven't done this yet because it's all, I mean, we're all students as well, being Gen Zers, so it's hard to do this like in the midst of the semester, but we're going to compare this with outbreaks of fire from the Global Forest Watch. And then we will see which plantations should be flagged and, brought to their attention, specifically ones that are not RSPO certified. And the function of this tool is, for on the one hand, to look specifically at plantations, because we have this at our fingertips now, this map. The other function is to use it as a great example and tell other palm oil companies and producers and refineries and whatnot to be like, hey, this corporation did this and they let us see all of their operations. You should follow their example and offer more public transparency by doing something just like this. So it's a cool fact that we found this good example of what some companies can do to improve their transparency.
Can you explain what, you mentioned a certification that company was lacking. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So RSPO stands for Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. And the RSPO is basically it's kind of like an NGO. It's kind of just like a voluntary agreement. It's a roundtable. So it's just a participatory group of companies that have to do with palm oil. And it's about, sustainable palm oil production. So basically they have made some different pledges to not do harmful practices. So there's this other abbreviation you might come across, NDPE, which means no, I don't remember what the D stands for. No deforestation, peat exploration or something like that. It has something to do with farming on peatlands, which are basically, it's a type of ground that is like super dense in carbon, I believe. It's kind of like a bog or a swamp. Like they all have their actual own definitions, so a geologist would be mad at me for comparing them all, but it's kind of like this swampy area. And so if you cut down a peatland, if you cut down the trees on a peatland, or if you, worst case scenario, burn the trees to clear the land, you're going to be releasing like so many times more CO2 and methane and other like greenhouse gases into the air. So that's an example. One of their pledges would be to have like the NDPE certification thing, or I don't know if it's a certification, but it's basically like a promise. The problem with the RSPO certification anyway, so you'll see it sometimes, there are labels on food products. Like if you go to the grocery store and you're looking for some kind of snack product and you look on the back next to the ingredients, there might be some kind of thing that says RSPO certified. And that is a potential good sign, but a lot of people have said that the RSPO is not strong enough because, and this is like an international relations, global studies thing, because it doesn't have an enforcement mechanism. It's not like the World Trade Organization that has like a retaliatory thing. There's no court system. It's literally just like a voluntary kind of agreement between companies and like stakeholders and not shareholders, that there's no enforcement mechanism. So if people claim to be RSPO certified, but they're breaking some of their promises, there's literally nothing stopping them from still putting that label on their products, unless there's like some process for the public to call them out on breaking their promises that they had signed on to by being a part of the RSPO. So yeah, that's a bit of background there. I don't know if that clarifies it.
That does, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is our main project for the change part of it. And so, sorry, Reese, did you raise your hand?
Oh yeah, I was just curious. Do you guys do any like collaborative efforts with like political like environmental organizations? Like I was thinking like Sunrise Movement, but is there any crossover?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So we are kind of required to be not apolitical, but like we have to be like nonpartisan because that's Rainforest Partnerships thing. As like a nonprofit, we can't explicitly endorse people the way the Sunrise Movement does as an organization. But obviously there's a lot of crossover because Sunrise, Zero Hour, Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion, they all have like a focus on youth. I know Extinction Rebellion has like their own youth chapter. So and so we actually have met with a deputy director of partnerships from Zero Hour. Her name is Lena Wijnet, and I think she is originally from Brazil, and she is focused on food sovereignty and like sustainable food systems. So she wants to bring more like plant-based options as the default to a lot of different areas. And so she's doing great work. And Zero Hour, according to her, we met with her, I think back in August, she told us that their current goal is their current activities are focused on voter registration in the Midwest for the upcoming US election. And then I know that Sunrise is also doing like phone banking for a lot of candidates. So because the Rainforest Partnership has to be nonpartisan, there's actually a bit of a benefit for our existence, because something that like, worries me is like, are we being totally redundant? Like, is there any purpose for us to be here? But I think yes, because a lot of the bigger groups like Sunrise and Zero Hour, they have a lot of people engaged with politics, which is very necessary because our generation is more politically active and should be more and more politically active. So there's a greater voter turnout and just more accountability and like attention on those actual platforms and all of that. And I like wholeheartedly support what they're doing. But they don't have a specific focus on rainforests, and they are a bit more focused on American politics. So Rainforest Partnership being an international organization and having most of our focus in like Peru and in Ecuador, we have like more opportunities to connect with like the Juventud branch of La CONAFIE, which is the like youth branch of the Confederation of Indigenous Nations in Ecuador. And so we are bringing, so when we met with Lena, we were telling her about like, who we are and why we started and all of that. And we asked if there's any provisions specifically about rainforest conservation in the Green New Deal. And she was like, I don't think there are. And there's also nothing about that on Zero Hour's platform. And she was like, we should add something like that. So part of our function being here is to remind people that rainforests like specifically need some protections, as do oceans, as do different kinds of habitats. Like our specific expertise is in rainforests, so that's what we advocate for. But it's sort of to remind people that yes, policy is super important, but you also need to make sure that you are tailoring your solutions to the people it's going to serve, the places it's going to serve.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the ongoing projects we have, there's Climate Week, there's Palm Oil, there's outreach, there's social media stuff, and then there's new projects. So this is just like technically an internal document, but I don't mind y'all looking at it. It's just like this is just like a table of contents of what we have in our shared drive for onboarding new folks. And so I can go ahead and tell y'all about our Climate Week event maybe, or I could tell y'all first about the inspirational stuff like Project Drawdown and whatnot. Which one do y'all want to hear about first? I'll go ahead and tell you all about the inspirational stuff. So let me pause screen sharing for a second while I pull up the right document. And basically the inspiration aspect of it, I'd like to know how many of you guys have heard of Solarpunk before? One person? Okay. So Reese, do you want to tell us what you know about Solarpunk?
It's just like a genre. It's like cyberpunk, but it's just like a genre of it's like a futuristic vision sort of, where like especially in architecture, but like environmentalism takes precedence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good explanation of it. I don't know if y'all have heard of steampunk or solarpunk. Steampunk is like this aesthetic kind of based in like the Victorian era in the 1800s, where everything was steam powered and there's gears everywhere. And it's this kind of gritty, semi-dystopian historical genre. And then cyberpunk is a little bit of the opposite, because it's a futuristic but still dystopian genre where everything is like neon and electrified. And a lot of people think that we're heading towards a cyberpunk future. And then solarpunk is the opposite of these two in like both senses, because it's futuristic but it's utopian and optimistic rather than being dystopian. So I feel like this is like back to Gen Z being like very morbid in our humor. I read this one thing on the internet saying that like we have the same like morbid sense of humor as like soldiers, which if you think about it, I mean, it's bad, but like it makes sense because we've lived through like an era of like school shootings and just disasters one after the other. So our goal with Gen Z for the Trees is to promote this sort of optimistic thing, because we're going to be alive decades from now, most of us, And in order to build that better future, you have to like be able to visualize it. So that is the function that Solarpunk serves, because it has an architectural aspect. It has aspects in like how food systems work, how people dress, and how the fashion system works, and just about like how the economy should run, how transportation should be designed, all of these things. And so if y'all look up Solarpunk on like Google Images, you'll probably get a lot of images that are like futuristic, shiny white buildings with like gardens on all the balconies, trees everywhere. And that is the like most futuristic aspect of Solarpunk. And it's definitely an aesthetic that's really inviting to a lot of people, and it's very inspiring. And then a more like close to home part of Solarpunk is sort of what it would take to be a Solarpunk in your daily life. And so what that can look like is growing your own food and like trading that with your neighbors that also have gardens, or mending your clothes when they get like torn rather than just throwing them out. So like reducing waste in your daily life. And yeah, just like it is a bit of like a radical approach to the world, because the essence of any punk culture, this is very meta, but the essence of any punk culture is like going against the status quo. So solar punk is like that. It's kind of like, you know, we want to be rebels and revolutionaries, but we're going to do it in this like supportive, community-centered way that's all about like moving slow and growing things rather than like breaking stuff and living in a dystopia and just being okay with that. Because like being in dystopia, although we've grown up in a world that's like very complicated, there's a lot of reason to have hope. So I can go ahead and screen share again. We have this document is also an internal document, but we are planning to kind of replicate this document and share it because we have a link tree. I guess I should show y'all our Instagram page. We have our Instagram page. We have a link tree here, and so it's all about Climate Week stuff going on. And our link tree has a lot of like stuff about the stuff that we have mentioned in our posts thus far. So we have it split up with like an educate part, inspire, and then change, and then we have other links to look through, and then this is for like more data side of things. So the inspiration part, obviously my kind of favorite part of this, there's a lot of different links in here. And if y'all are interested, you can go to our Instagram and check out the different posts we have there to see some of them. Or if you want me to click on any of these right now, just like let me know, or else I'll just click through a few of them to show you guys some cool examples. Because like while we have this time together, I think it'd be great to show you also what some of this looks like. Okay, I will go ahead and let's see, which one was cool to look at? This one is a great solution, and then Project Drawdown as well. Okay, so question again, how many of y'all have heard of Project Drawdown? Nope, okay. So we'll start with that. Project Drawdown is, what drawdown means is basically drawing down carbon emissions. And so Project Drawdown is this like huge undertaking by a lot of scientists to come up with a table of solutions about how we can bring down carbon emissions and ultimately kind of like turn them negative. Basically, like they call themselves the most comprehensive solution to the climate crisis. And so if you go to this, if you just Google Drawdown, like Project Drawdown, and go to their website, Solutions and Table of Solutions, it'll show you this whole like table of cool technologies, basically, that are possible solutions to possible ways for like carbon sequestration. And they have different like scenarios, like differing in how much they're implemented, and they tell you how much carbon is sequestered, gigatons. So just reading through this list, there's a lot of amazing solutions and technologies that young people and older people, but like young people definitely probably haven't been exposed to because they're kind of like up and coming. So a lot of them make sense, like alternative refrigerants is actually like the most useful thing in terms of carbon sequestration or drawing down, because it emits a lot of carbon when they're inefficient. And like, okay, carpooling, people have heard of that. Bioplastics, people have heard of that, like making plastic out of like cactus or like fish scales and things like that. But other technologies are like pretty interesting and complicated. So alternative cement can have different forms, but some forms it can take of is making cement out of hemp, which, going back into politics for a second, hemp is like the whole family of plants that includes like cannabis and marijuana. And a large reason behind the push for illegalization of it came from the timber and paper industry, because these industries require growing trees. And timber, or sorry, wood pulp, which is used to make like building materials, and paper especially, and then clothing as well, like cotton fibers and whatnot, for clothing, can all be replaced with hemp instead. And so, and hemp takes a lot less water and a lot less land to grow on. So it would be the most efficient thing to do. But because of the special interests from these lobbyists, from these different industries that are about like growing trees or growing cotton or whatnot, hemp was like banned for a while. And I think that in certain places, like some kinds of the plant are now like safe to grow, or like not illegal to grow. Obviously, like legalization of marijuana is a debate in a lot of states still. So alternative cement also involves taking hemp and turning it into a kind of concrete, and then it actually serves as a carbon sink because it absorbs CO2 as it sits there and kind of eventually fossilifies into limestone. So that's an example of science stuff that's like a great solution to issues of carbon. And then CSP, or concentrated solar power, I think there should be an image if we click on this. It looks like this. Oh, that's not a great image. Basically, concentrated solar power is a solar power plant that looks like a huge tower in the center of a field of circular mirrors. So you'll find these out in like the desert in Arizona. They have a ton of mirrors arranged around a circle, and they all reflect the sun's light into a single point on this tower, and there's like molten salt in it, and it kind of works the same way geothermal energy works. But it's just like really impressive and really beautiful, and it's solar power. So there's all of these different solutions that offer, obviously there's electric transportation, protection of different kinds of land, high-speed rail systems, methane digesters. This is something that we saw on our trip. Basically, biogas digesters or methane digesters allow you to turn agricultural waste. So like say you farm cows for dairy, and then the cows like create waste, and then you can actually gather that and shovel it into this biogas digester. And as it kind of decomposes and releases methane, rather than that just floating into the atmosphere and causing more greenhouse warming, it can be turned into cooking fuel. So it's a way of just like capturing that energy rather than it getting like just gone to waste. Yeah, if you'll have any questions or comments about these, if you can totally like search this, or I can like send you guys a link maybe. You can bookmark it and just like explore all of these different solutions, because if you read a little bit about each of these, you'll be just so much more knowledgeable about like all the different great things that people are doing around the world to implement this stuff and like fight the climate crisis. Yeah, so let's see, I think that there's one here. It doesn't actually have it spelled that way, but two common solutions that we talk about are agroforestry and aquaponics, but mainly agroforestry and agrivoltaic. Right, so agroforestry is kind of what it sounds like. It's agriculture and forests put together. So that means growing crops under the shade of trees left standing. So yeah, I see someone shaking their head or nodding their head. When we were in Costa Rica, we learned about how you can farm coffee in the shade of like standing trees, so you don't have to deforest any land, and it can actually boost their productivity. And then in more really sunny areas that maybe don't have the best soil quality either for growing things and don't have big trees to begin with. So for example, in the desert or in like grasslands, places in Texas would be a good example too, because we don't have like super duper tall trees necessarily. Agrovoltaic is the combination of agriculture and photovoltaic technology. And photovoltaic just means like solar power. So the way this works is you put like a layer of solar panels above the ground. And then, this is a good image. You put a layer of solar panels above the ground, and then you farm stuff beneath it. So there is some sunlight that reaches the crops beneath the solar panels, but you're doubling the use of the same area of land you have. So what this shows you is like if you have wheat and then you have land, okay, you need separate, or you have wheat and you have solar power, you need separate tracts of land if you're not going to layer them. But if you layer them in the same amount of land, you get like a big boost in productivity. So yeah, I don't know if y'all had heard about agrivoltaics before. Okay. No. So yes, this is just a couple examples about, oops, sorry. About inspirational stuff. And so there's this large article, if you guys like to read it, it's called On the Political Dimensions of Solarpunk. And there's like a whole community of solarpunk people on Medium. And this is a great image. This is what concentrated solar power looks like. So all of these things are mirrors. And this is this like shining bright tower of molten salt in the center. And it basically cycles, and by doing that, it like produces electricity. So it's a bit of a long read. It's like apparently a 27-minute read, but it will tell you everything you want to learn about solarpunk and like why it's needed and what it looks like. So this is a bit of like concept art. And yeah, it's something that I really, really love. It like always brings hope back to me whenever I'm feeling like eco-anxiety. And Reese, you would ask the question about like working with other youth organizations. So because we have to be nonpartisan, Gen Z for the Trees, we are thinking about this. Like we might change our rules as part of Rainforest Partnership because like there are ways we might get around it. But at the present, we're not like making endorsements of anyone, especially because Sunrise Movement kind of has that down. So we don't feel the need to like duplicate their efforts. But Solarpunk and what we are doing by going after corporations is kind of like a corporate, it's all about power. And so it is in that definition of the word like political. Yeah, and so there is this awesome essay. And if you guys want, just like let me know and I can send the link to this. Or you could Google the title. It's called On the Political Dimensions of Solarpunk. Yeah, it's a great article. They have a lot of powerful images. Like here's a picture from somewhere in Bastrop, I believe, where there's a wildfire. But yeah, and it talks a little bit about like cyberpunk and how it's different from cyberpunk. And it talks about just touching on a lot of aspects of culture, which have kind of been left behind by other fictional genres. So I think that it does a great job of combining like creative writing, because like I also love creative writing and I hope to be a writer when I grow up down the road. So yeah, it kind of talks about why urbanization is actually not something that needs to be fought, but rather embraced, because urban sprawl is a problem, but well-designed like dense cities are actually a way to help the environment. And yeah, so it is a long article. But it's a very important one, and reading it will kind of like permanently help shift your mindset towards like a different attitude about like what can be done and what's being done. Yeah, so super long article.
What does like a typical week look like for you as an intern?
Oh, question. Over the summer was different from this semester. Over the summer, I was a critical language scholar. So that's like a national level. It's like a scholarship by the US Department of State. It's supposed to be a study abroad where you go to a different country, and it's like an 8-week intensive language program. So I was abroad for Mandarin Chinese. Some context, I'm half Pakistani and half Chinese. So I didn't grow up, like I only grew up speaking English, and then I learned Spanish in school. And so now I'm finally formally studying Chinese in college for the past couple of years. And because of COVID, it was turned into a virtual institute. So that was what I mentioned over the summer. I was like basically getting up super early to go on live conferences with our teachers in China because of the time zone difference. It was early morning for us and evening for them. So because of that, over the summer, a week would basically look like every single morning I had about 2.5 hours of Chinese class, and then I would do work on researching stuff. So a lot of effort went into pulling together this list. And then we would have meetings every Tuesday and Thursday to work on like outreach plans. So we have like spreadsheets of other organizations to get in contact with. So that's how we were able to get a meeting with the deputy director at 0 Hour. And then there's a lot of like webinars that I went to in the start that helped create the focus of this. And then I'm also an intern for the Ecuador projects team. So that's a separate branch of RP from Rainforest, from Gen Z for the Trees. So we also have meetings for that, and we've been developing a data initiative basically for the indigenous people to collect data and then sell that to researchers rather than researchers traveling to the country to do field work themselves. Because of COVID, a lot of people can no longer travel or had to just go back to their home country, and their research got interrupted or something like that. So what we're hoping to set up is basically a way of like, it's a sustainable livelihood solution for the San Isla community in Ecuador so that they can have like a better source of revenue, because previously they depended on ecotourism, but because of COVID, there's no more tourism. So my week was basically split between class in the morning, doing homework when I didn't have meetings, and then going to meetings, and then looking through a lot of readings and whatnot. And then I was also like an economics undergraduate research fellow. So I was working with a PhD student from the Department of Econ at UT on a question about environmental economics. So there is actually, I put a shortcut to this is one of the things that we had to read, is called An Economist's Guide to Climate Change Science. And I think you can just look this up. It's available on the internet. It is a super helpful guide to climate change science in case you already think you know a lot, but you want to know a bit more. It goes through the background, and my highlights are still showing up. It has a lot of numbers that are important to know. And because it's by economists, it's like very specific and well done when it comes to data. Like they don't mince their words, and they don't like muddle any facts, because they're economists, they're econometricians, and so they place a big emphasis on getting their statistics right. So it basically explains what the different RSCs mean, that representative concentration pathways, the RCPs, and then the different like possibilities and like how feedback loops work and all of this stuff. So I don't know like to what extent different people have studied climate science, but this is a helpful resource too. Yeah. And then in the fall semester, my week is basically like revolving around also classes and homework, and then doing work for continuing to pull together stuff, pulling together the palm oil resources, and then planning for Climate Week the past couple weeks. That was a really long answer, sorry. Yeah, so that is mostly what I have for the resources. There is a lot of cool stuff for us to look through here. This is another example of Solarpunk stuff that has just like, as Reese had mentioned, architecture things. So it's super cool to look through. If you're ever feeling down about like the climate crisis, you can come here and look at the different like possibilities for cities. And so we have maybe about 10 more minutes left, and I could tell you all about the 7-week challenge that we're hosting for Climate Week. And then hopefully you can participate in it if this is interesting to you. Yeah, so it's a great article, this one, about it's very like futuristic, obviously, about the different kinds of cities that could exist. But yeah, so let's talk about Climate Week for a little bit. Climate Week is happening this coming week. So the kickoff is on Monday, and basically, how many of y'all have heard of Climate Week or NYC Climate Week before? Sort of. It's not as big of a deal, obviously, as something like the COP, the Conference of Parties, but NY Climate Week is kind of this annual conference of a lot of different people. Let me see if I can pull up the link, because like I think that, yeah, okay, there we go. They have a ton of events, like hundreds of events from a bunch of different organizations. So if you guys are interested in other aspects of the climate crisis and mitigation, you can go to their events program and, you know, see what you have time to visit, and just look through all the different things. So there's like different hosts, obviously, so many different host organizations. And so they have this massive events calendar. Ours is going to be Monday evening to kick off the week. So I think we're no longer at the end of the page because there have been new ones added. So there we are. And there's something from Project Jordan actually right before us. So the 7-day challenge is basically so the live kickoff panel is an introduction to our team, kind of like the introduction that I've given y'all here, but it'll be a panel of everyone else speaking. So our amazing team currently will be there, and we're planning to get a guest speaker as well. So the kickoff event is just to kind of like walk people through what the 7-day challenge is going to look like, which I could do for y'all right now. So the 7-day challenge is, how do I explain this without like going into so much detail? It's supposed to be an educational opportunity, and a fun opportunity for people to engage with learning about rainforest conservation, because a lot of people are like, okay, it's not on my radar, so I'm not going to see anything about it, so I'm not going to learn anything about it, so I'm not going to care. And if I don't care about it, I'm not going to seek out information about it. So we're hoping to like break that cycle by making it fun and making it like a bit of a trend where people are going to like get their friends in on some of the challenges. And so the first challenge is kind of like a go outdoors and take a picture of the outdoors, and it's like called Mindfulness Monday. The second is about Tuesday of tomorrow, so we'll be sharing stories about like climate optimism. Wednesday is called Water Use Wednesday, and this is not a secret actually because we have this here. Water Use Wednesdays, we're going to talk about beef specifically, because beef cattle ranching is like the biggest cause of tropical deforestation. And then if people already don't eat meat or don't eat beef, then we're going to have them read a little bit about like stuff like almond milk and how that still uses a lot of water, and just, you know, make people more aware about some different things they might have missed in their pursuit of being more environmentally friendly by, you know, stop drinking cow's milk. But if they've been drinking almond milk, it's still like a large water footprint. And then Thursday of Truth is focused on Indigenous people. So we're going to have the Native Land Map, which is also a great resource that I should show y'all. How many of y'all have heard of the Native Land Map before? I know that Jack would know, because he was able to name the different tribes whose land we're on. And I live out in Manor, which is like a half-an-hour drive. Like it's east of East Austin, so I'm like technically not in Austin, but like I always tell people I'm from Austin, and I am on Tonkawa and Sana land. So you can tell basically whose land you're on by looking at this map. And basically it maps the land of Indigenous people in areas that were colonized by like Western countries. So in like these areas, they don't have any information, although there are Indigenous groups that have been kind of pushed out by like more dominant ethnic groups. It focuses on Australia, New Zealand, and then the Americas. So for example, in Ecuador, you can see the different communities that we work with here. There's the Achuar, there's all of these people here. Wrong part of the coast. And then if you go up to Texas, you can see it's a different way of looking at things, because, you know, there's not the typical borders that we're familiar with. But if you zoom in right about here, this I think is where, is that? This is around where Austin, Texas is, so-called Austin, Texas. So I think that there's like a convergence of a lot of different groups around where campus is, and like where I live is kind of out here-ish, further out. I'm still not familiar with this without like the roads and typical borders you would see on a map. So obviously I need to do more work with familiarizing myself with this map and with like the different groups that there were here. But yeah. So this is a cool resource. It has a simple URL too. Y'all can look it up. And if you have, you know, family in other parts of the world, other parts of the country, the continent, anywhere, you can just look up these cultures, and you can click on them and they'll tell you some links to their sites. So you can, for example, click on Tonkawa and then it'll tell you this. They have a website for their tribe, and they have a bit of like, not a directory, but like a resource or kind of a dictionary for the language. Yeah, so that's what we're hoping to get people to look at on the Thursday challenge. And then for Friday, it's called Fast Fashion Friday. So we were debating between fossil fuels and fast fashion. I think everyone knows that fossil fuels are bad. So we went with fast fashion because this is something that has like started gaining some speed on social media, that Gen Zs are realizing that like common fashion brands are actually super harmful because they produce like so much pollution in their water use for dyes and chemicals, the amount of like resources it takes to grow the fibers for them anyway, or if they're like synthetic fibers, they're actually from fossil fuels. So yeah, there's that. And then Surprise Saturday is about palm oil because it will surprise people how many of their products in their house contain palm oil. So this can be anything from like snacks to toothpaste and shampoo to like all kinds of products. And so we have curated a lot of links and resources in a separate internal document where we will provide links for people to figure out different sneaky names of palm oil that appears in some ingredients lists, and then different kinds of foods that don't have any palm oil in them if they're hoping to avoid it completely. And we can also help educate people on like what the RSPO is, what it means, what it's good for, what it's still lacking in, because there are efforts to make the RSPO more enforceable and a bit of a stronger like pact, but they haven't really taken effect yet. So palm oil is a really complicated thing. And a lot of companies and countries will set targets for like 2030. But if you just think about like that means that every single fire season, there's going to keep being fires and keep being animals dying. It's not something that we're willing to just sit on for like another several years. So that's why we're starting this palm oil power mapping thing now, to really push like as fast as a change as possible. And then the last day, Sustainability Sunday, is about what sustainable activism means. So how to prevent yourself from suffering from burnout, and how to basically like incorporate this zero waste kind of attitude and everything that Gen Z for the Trees and Rainforest Partnership stands for into your daily life, so that it really becomes like a shift rather than a trend. Yeah, that is all that I have to say. That is like the end of my spiel. This is the 7-day challenge, and this is all that Gen Z for the Trees is working on. So yeah, I hope that you guys learned something new, and I know that y'all didn't have like a like huge chance to have like a discussion or debate. So like if you have any questions, like please ask.
To get involved with the 7-day sustainability challenge, is the best way to go through Instagram or through the Climate Week website?
Yeah, good question. If you want to come to the live kickoff event, you can go to the Climate Week website, and then you can like come see us in person, and like be in a Zoom call with like dozens of other people. And then you'll get to meet like the other people on the team. You saw that like lineup of the 4 other people. It's 7 p.m. Central Time on Monday, this coming Monday. So if that does work for you, then I can send a link so you can go and sign up. But either way, the challenge is going to be conducted over social media, so mostly on Instagram and on Twitter as well, because we also have a Twitter. I don't personally have a Twitter, so I'm not the one like working on that side. But yeah, so through Instagram. So if you follow our account, then you'll see like the challenge posted every day. And then we encourage you to either make a post or post to your story on Instagram, and then tag our account and use the hashtag Gen Z for the Trees. And then if you like tag us in your story, then we'll see it. We'll be able to reshare to our account. So you'll also get like a bit of a shout out. So everyone else, like the hundreds of followers that we have, will see what you've done for the day. So let me send the link to our Climate Week website. So this is Rainforest Partnership's Climate Week page. So you can see Gen Z for the Trees' thing is at the top because we're on Monday. And if you hit the link, that's the button that says sign up for the launch event, it'll take you to a Zoom registration page, and you can just sign up through that. And then the other things on the page, on the other cards, are Films for the Forest and then a documentary. So Films for the Forest is this other branch of RP that's basically about creating movies and films related to rainforest. So it's a film competition basically, and it's this really cool intersection of like art and science, because we have like filmmakers and then we have like conservation experts working together, and people just like create stuff and they just submit it to us, and then we get to like basically pick like we get like famous people and like actresses and whatnot to be judges, and then we'll like assign prizes and whatnot. And I haven't been involved with F3 Films for the Forest because like I just joined as an intern this summer, but it's a really exciting thing that RP does. So that's the page ours. And then if you want to look at the entire events program, here's the link just in case. And then, yeah, you can navigate to ours through the card for Monday, but you have the link straight to the RP website already. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry if you mentioned this before and I just missed it, but do you guys, or does Rainforest Partnership or Gen Z for the Trees take like volunteer work, or is it mostly through like internships or officials?
It's kind of like yes, no, both kind of, because the internships are a bit of a formal agreement. Like there's a process, you have to apply, you have to have an interview, you have to like get hired as an intern, and it is a non-paid internship position. So you can also call us volunteers or volunteer interns because we're not like being paid. But most of our work is done by people that are like a formal part of the team. And so like we have our own email address at rainforestpartnership.org, and we have an account in Slack and all of that. If you're interested in getting involved, I would highly recommend that you just like apply for their team, because we're like currently recruiting people. And if you're a UT student and if you're part of like the CEC, like I'm sure that you have like the passion and all the knowledge. And so the recruiting process is like not scary at all, because like when I applied, I got sent like a questionnaire, which was from HR, which was like, okay, great. And so I filled out the questionnaire, and they got back to me, and then I interviewed with the CEO, Nyanza Spellman. And so like it went like straight like to the second step, like was talking to Nyanza. And then after that, she like kind of hired me on the spot. So I would definitely encourage you to apply if you think that you have the time. And the time commitment is totally flexible, because like again, they're not paying you. So like whatever time you can offer is time that we would love to have you working for us. So whether that's like 5 hours a week for 3 months, if you have the skill set to like work with us for 3 months, I'm sure that you would accomplish a lot. So that is awesome. Or if it can be like 10 hours a week for 3 months, or 10 hours a week for like a year, like anything goes really. As long as like you as a person have like the qualities that we would want in someone as a volunteer.